Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're digging into something that affects all of our money, whether you're a big-time investor or not. The world of financial auditors. We're going to look at how some absolutely massive scandals basically forced everyone to rewrite the rule book that's supposed to keep our economy honest. All right, let's jump right in with a question that, believe it or not, has multi-trillion-dollar consequences. I mean, you see these giant companies release their financial results, right? Big, glossy reports. But how do we really know those numbers are legit? Who's the ref checking their homework? Well, that's where the auditor comes in. You can kind of think of them as financial detectives. They're these outside specialists that a company hires to come in, go through all the books, and basically be an independent guardian of the truth. They're there for the investors, for the employees, for all of us, really. So their whole mission, their entire reason for being, comes down to this one critical phrase: giving a true and fair view. Now, when an auditor signs off, they're not saying every single penny is accounted for perfectly. Nope. What they are saying is that in their professional opinion, the numbers you're looking at give you a reliable picture of the company's financial health. And that stamp of approval, that's supposed to be the bedrock of investor confidence. Okay, but here's where it starts to get tricky. Right from the get-go, there's this built-in tension in what an auditor is actually supposed to do. And this tension, well, it would eventually explode into a full-blown crisis. And this slide, right here, this gets to the absolute heart of the problem. It's what's known as the expectation gap. See, on one side, you've got us, the public, the investors, and we tend to think that an auditor's seal of approval means the company is totally risk-free, that every single little problem has been found. But then, on the other side, you have the reality of what auditors are legally required to do, which is to provide reasonable assurance, an opinion that the big picture is fair. Not perfect, but fair. And look, this isn't just some theory from a textbook. The auditors themselves will tell you flat out, hey, our job has limits. They argue that it's just impossible to catch every single thing. And this quiet little disagreement, this thing simmering just below the surface, it was about to have huge and very, very public consequences. So that gap, it wasn't just some minor misunderstanding. It blew up. It turned into a massive crisis that shook the very foundations of the financial world. It really was a chain reaction. For years, this expectation gap thing was kind of just an inside baseball issue, you know? The public didn't really notice. But then, the early 2000s happened. We saw these spectacular corporate collapses. Enron is the one everyone remembers. And they exposed these shocking accounting irregularities. All of a sudden, billions of dollars in shareholder money just, poof, vanished. People were furious, and all that anger was pointed right at the system and the auditors who were supposed to prevent this from ever happening. So after those scandals, forget the old way of doing things. That was over. The demand from the public, from regulators, from politicians, it was deafening. And it was simple. They wanted one thing: transparency. No more hiding debt, no more clever accounting games. Just give us a crystal clear, honest-to-goodness picture of the company's finances. All that immense public pressure basically forced the regulators' hands. They had to act. And they did by creating a much, much stricter rulebook for the entire auditing industry, one designed to be a stronger shield for the everyday investor. So regulators really zeroed in on two massive failures that the scandals brought to light. First, auditors were getting way too cozy with their clients after working with them for years and years. And second, these big accounting firms were making so much money from other services like consulting that you had to wonder, were they really independent anymore? First on the chopping block was this idea of auditor rotation. The logic here is pretty simple, right? If the same firm audits a company for like 20 or 30 years, are they really staying objective, or do they just become part of the family, maybe a little too willing to overlook things? Forcing companies to switch up their auditors every few years is all about making sure a fresh, skeptical pair of eyes is always looking at the books. And second, they went hard after conflicts of interest. Regulators were getting really worried that an audit firm's judgment could be totally compromised if it was also raking in millions in consulting fees from that same company. I mean, think about it. Can you really be a tough, impartial referee if the team is also paying you a fortune to be their star consultant? Probably not. But here's the thing. Fixing the rules in just one country, even a huge one like the US, was only part of the solution. Because by this point, the world of money had gone completely global.
And that created a whole new kind of challenge. I mean, if you're sitting in London and you want to invest in a company based in Tokyo, or maybe one in New York, how do you know you're comparing apples to apples? How can you be sure their accounting rules even mean the same thing?
Before this big push for global standards, the financial world was basically a patchwork quilt of different rules. You had the UK with its own standards from the FRC. Over in the US, they had their own system called GAAP. For an investor, trying to compare international companies was, well, it was a mess. It was confusing and super risky. All that confusion created this really powerful momentum for something that sounds kind of radical, a universal language for money. A single, high-quality set of accounting rules that absolutely everyone, everywhere, could use, and more importantly, could trust. So this international group called IOSCO, you can think of them as a club for the world's most powerful market regulators, including America's own SEC. They stepped up to lead the charge. Their goal was simple: harmonize financial reporting and create that one global standard for everyone. And the end goal here, it's simple, but it's absolutely revolutionary. It's to make it possible for an investor, say in Brazil, to look at the financial statements of a company in Germany and know exactly what they're looking at. This allows money to flow more freely and, crucially, more safely across borders. So, where does that leave us? We've seen how a massive crisis of trust led to a whole wave of new, tougher rules and a big push for one global standard. But it leaves us with one last, really important question to chew on. In a world that's constantly changing, with business and finance getting more and more complex every day, can any single set of rules, no matter how carefully they're written, ever truly guarantee total trust in the numbers? That's definitely something to think about.